All right, so welcome back to the Back 40 Firewood channel. Today I'm going to be splitting some wood and demonstrating the difference between the single wedge, the 4-way wedge, and the 6-way wedge on the Wolf Ridge 28-ton compact commercial log splitter. I often get asked which wedge I prefer to use the most, and it all depends on the situation, what I'm splitting, if I'm splitting for my personal use, if I'm splitting for the roadside stand, if I'm splitting for bundles. So I'm just going to show you guys the difference, what happens when you take a round similar size and you split it with the 4-way, the 6-way, and the single. What you end up with after each split. Because I know some of you out there may be wondering, if you're sitting right now thinking about ordering yourself a Wolf Ridge splitter, which the best way to do that is just go to their website and you can fill everything out online and complete your purchase, and that's the best way to get a hold of them. But you might want to include the 6-way wedge depending on your situation. So let me show you what I got, and maybe this will help you answer some of those questions you have. All right, so there they are. We've got the 4-way, the 6-way, and then back there, of course, is the single. But what I have here is I have 3 rounds of oak. They're all about the same size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break these down with each wedge, and then I'm going to set aside, and we'll come back and we'll look at the end results of splitting these with each wedge. And again, like I said, it all depends on kind of, what you are splitting for, like what you want your end product to look like and what it's going to be used for. So for instance, you'll see in a bit here, when I use the single wedge, I'm mostly using that to split for myself. I'll end up with slabs like that. The 4-way is also good. If I'm splitting bigger pieces for the boiler that I know are going to have plenty of time to season, I'll use the 4-way. The 6-way is also nice if you want to take around like this and break it down into, a little smaller pieces. So maybe those would be like roadside stand, bundle grade pieces. So let's get these 3 rounds split up, and then we'll look at the end results. All right, so on to the results. So first we'll start with what we just split last, the 6-way, and we'll work back to the single. So as you can see with the 6-way, obviously you get 6 pieces of wood. You can see the size of those, not too bad. They are, they are still a good sized chunk of wood. For this size round, like those for me would probably be too big for the roadside stand. Those, however, would be probably pretty good for, say you were selling this wood for like, somebody with a wood stove or even a boiler. Those are pretty good sized firewood pieces for burning for heat purposes. Now, one thing you do notice, some of the shavings and the splintering back there. So for this one piece, we did end up with 4 shavings that came off. So you do have that. That's one thing that people always notice about the 6-way is you get a lot of that stuff right there. But the advantage right there, 6 pieces, good size, 1 push through. Okay, so now the 4-way. Again, obviously, you get 4 pieces of wood from 1 push through with the 4-way wedge. These pieces now, pretty good size. These things, I would consider those like good for possibly a wood stove, but more or less like boiler wood for an outdoor wood boiler. They're big. These pieces, I would probably let season at least a year and a half. You can see how wet the inside of this wood is, and it's just wet to the touch. So these things, they will, granted, it was from a standing dead oak tree, so they will dry down a little bit faster because they don't have any bark, but those insides, pretty wet, pretty high moisture content still. So again here, disadvantage, you end up with pretty big chunks. So unless you're like selling to someone burning with an outdoor wood boiler or a large wood stove, or if you own a large wood stove or a wood boiler, these would be, you know, pretty good size pieces and probably ideal for what you would want. Again, 1 push through, 4 pieces. And last but not least, the results from the single wedge. And you could see when I was splitting this, what I did, basically, I just kind of shaved these into like fat slabs. So for me, this is like my ideal, I guess, boiler wood, or like what I prefer for burning for myself. And the reason is, they say that oak will dry the best 1 inch a year. So this piece is probably a little over 2 inches, but it's going to be drying from both sides. So in a year's time or less, that piece of wood will be ready to burn, as will all of these 3 right here. The other thing I like about this method that I'm finding I like more and more is the way they stack. So I think that works pretty good. And that's, like I said, when I'm splitting for myself, this has become my preferred method. Now, the downside, obviously, to get these 4 pieces of wood, I had to run the push plate through 3 times. So I used 3 passes with the splitter to get these 4 pieces. So efficiency is down. However, like I mentioned before, if I'm not in production splitting mode where I don't need to get a certain amount of wood split in a certain amount of time, this is my preferred method right there. All right, so one more look. We've got, there's the 6 pieces from the 6-way, pretty good size chunks. We got the 4 pieces from the 4-way, bigger size chunks, and then we have the 4 slabs from the single wedge. So one other factor that you may want to consider, that I'm starting to consider now as I split more and more wood for 2 years down the road, possibly a lot further into the future, is who is going to be handling the wood after you split it. So in my case, I have Amanda, and potentially in a few years, the little boss man is going to possibly be, you know, coming out here to maybe potentially load the wood boiler. If I have a big chunk of wood like this, chances are it may be a little hard for him to handle, or even for Amanda to handle. So in that case, I might want something like this, a little bit smaller. So for instance, when I first started selling firewood, I split everything one size, not taking into account what the customer may prefer. I ended up having to resplit a lot of my wood smaller. So yeah, so that's just one thing to consider, your end user. Who is going to be handling this wood once you split it? And that might also determine which wedge is best. If you know you have a customer, or if you know for yourself that you might have someone in your family handling this wood and you don't want too big of pieces, you know, the 6-way might work best. another factor to consider. So, all right, so hopefully you guys found a little bit of information in there. If not, hopefully you were entertained for a little while. Right now I'm going to finish splitting up. I got 6 pieces left. It won't be my normal ending where I say my tagline here and then end it. I'm going to say the tagline and then I'm going to keep on splitting. So enjoy the rest of the show, and thanks for watching. See you next time. Stay safe, have fun, and be cool.